You want answers?
What's that going to set up?
We've got to go to work.
It's the Strat Attack Show. But we're always wondering what the next two is.
Holy shnikes, it worked.
That's something I want to know about.
What's your name, scumbag?
Strat Attack Show.
We're on a mission from God.
Here's Rob Smith. Hello everyone, I'm Rob Smith. This is Smith in the Black, and if it's Tuesday, it's a Strat Attack Show where we get into the urban assault vehicle and see what's going on, so let's take a look. So what we do know here is that we got a good chance in an inside week in the SPY, and that's where you're going to get that back and forth as far as the futures are concerned, and so we're always going to be watching the different sector rotation when you have this going on, because we got a good chance. We got a short week next week, so we have a good chance of 2 weeks inside of this. How are we going to get outside of that, right? The good thing is you got a new month coming up, June, and so we want to see what new allocations look like, and it's also the end of the quarter. But for right now, you want to be aware that you're an inside week. Ones are going to chop you up. If we go to QQQ, here, also an inside week, a little bit closer to taking out those lows. We got some earnings coming out. It's a lot of retail and stuff like that. But what you want to do here is you want to scan. Okay, and so I do a lot of the strat attacks with the scans. So here, what we want to look for is anybody that's not an inside week, right? Come on, man. There we go. So it's not inside week. So if we go here, this is a scan for inside week and down, right? We know snap gapped, and we want to look for do we have a concentration in a certain sector or a reconfirmation of things we already know. So SQ here, I'll pull the scan off, but like SQ, inside week and down, right? And we've known this all month because it's also inside month and down. Now you're an exhaustion risk because you stopped everybody out here. The question is, are the sellers still there? As far as we know, because of the week, they are, right? We can go take this stuff out. So there's that. Carvana, we've known about this from the macro vid. Still inside week and down, still all sorts of trouble going on here. And if you go back to that monthly, ugh. Brutal. It's just been brutal for Carvana. So you want to try and beat on the weaklings as much as you can, and be aware that there's earnings coming out and a lot of different things like snow. Here, inside month and down, and if you go to the week, inside week and down, right? But the earnings are coming out, so we'll play that as it comes. But, you always want to stay with that strong trend and say, all right, look, these guys are still getting beaten down, right? And people say it's getting oversold, and hear me say it's oversolder. But when you have these inside bars, right, when people say capitulation, what that means to me is that there's no more signals left to the downside, right? It's short term. But, when people say volume capitulation, no, it's more of that we don't have more signals, and there are more things into exhaustion risk by going into the lows. And it doesn't mean it's going to go up, that things are going to go up. It just means it might go down slower. So we've got stuff like Lyft here and poked up there, 1 bar rev strat. And we've also known about Uber all month, which is also inside week to the downside, reconfirming that inside month to the downside that we've known about. So we always want to reconfirm, right? Because that means the trade is still good, right? Where people take profits too early, TWLO. Here, still puking, man. This thing's still in trouble. And if you go to the week, here was an inside week. Here was your chance. Nope, to the downside. So, a lot of things obviously have got beaten down pretty bad. And, what we had in the SPY, in the Qs and stuff, here, when you have an inside week, you're not going to get a lot of futures help. What we want is futures up, right? So if we have a signal, we want futures to have full time frame continuity with the continuity of what we're watching, right? And so we don't have that. We're going to have this one, which is a bit of an issue, and that's why, you know, at the end of the day, we had it sat in here all day, 2 down, and it was a 2 down day, but then 2 back up, inside, up, inside, up, right? So you'll hear me talk about that every hour is a new day to us, especially when you're in this situation. What we really want is full time frame continuity. They're just bashing everything or running everything, which we don't have. So if we go back to the scan, right, we also, not just inside and down, but anything taken out yesterday's or last week's lows, right? And we're on the day here. We'll go the week. And we run volume because we want to see if there's a concentration in any type of sector that's going on, right? So if you look at this snappy, we know gap pins, that gapped. Facebook, you know, we know that that's been on the macro lists, you know, since that. All this kind of stuff. AMC, Roblox, oh boy. Tesla having some problems, right? Twitter, there's news there, and yet going down. AFRM from the weekend video, all this kind of stuff. And then, do we have anything taking out last week's highs? Because what that's going to tell us is that when you have an inside week for the futures, which you do, anything that's taking out last week's highs, you got buyers in there. And that's what we want to know about. Or what are they buying? And I'm like, all right, well, you got Exxon. Yep, JP Morgan a little bit. You got some gold. You got slob. All this kind of stuff. What that tells us is it's reconfirming what we already know about energy. XLE hit the new high today for the year, I believe. What was that? 84.57. 84.60. Have we known about this? We have, because of the macro video, and no lower lows on the XLE all year. And the only thing I put in the macro video this month is XLE. So that tells you where you want to be over there. So because we're looking for a potential Rev Strat week. Inside week goes to new highs. That didn't happen. Now we're going new highs. And we should expect that to happen because of all the signals on the yearly going to the upside. So if anything, we also had some gold trying to come up. And here's your inside week GLD coming up. So some gold names coming up, you know, but it's day to day when you have this kind of stuff. You've got some earnings coming out, but when you have this inside week, you've got to be very aware that that's happening, right? Very aware. That's a 1. That's bad news, right? So if you're trading the futures, you got to be scalping. You don't have any major signals. We already had that 2-2 reversal here. Here's your broadening formation in the SPY. We go into lower lows, but now what's going to happen? And like I said, you're going to have a new month. So when you go to the monthly, here, still red on the month. And it's coming into June. How are we going to get outside of this range? Right? That's not going to be easy. If anything, it's going to be downside. We're closer to the downside, but you're nowhere near anything here. So we're always looking for what's the next 2, right? How close are we to doing that? How many things are doing that, right? And so what this is going to tell me is that we're going to see some choppy action until that changes. And you can see like stuff like XLV closer to 2 up on the month here as we close out the month. So we always want to be aware of what's the next 2, when are things occurring, and are you going to get any futures help out of it, right? Right now, probably not, right? QQQ, once again, monthly, blood red. And so when people say, well, I want to start buying it, I'm like, well, you're at 2 down, you're blood red, you're nowhere near taking out this month's highs, right? But you'll have a change in continuity come June. Say, okay, well, then we could have the month and the week and the day and the 60 green. That's fine, and that's great. That's something we want to know about. But if we don't, then you got problems. And you got to know that most likely, at best, Qs are going inside of the month for June. And the reason that's important is that because then we have a new quarter, right? Then we have a new quarter. Now we got quarterly signals, and you could have an inside month to the upside quarterly. But right now, we don't have that. So we're always watching, when things occur, how close are we to the next two. But right now, got to be aware of inside weeks. And you got a short week next week, even though it is the new month. And I'm sorry, let's go to the week. Here. And you got to be aware of potentially 2 weeks inside because you only have 4 days of trading next week, right? Even though it's a new month and it could go 2-1, 2 up, you still got to get out of the mother bar range. And the mother bar is the bar before the inside bar. And so then we got to get out of that. So there's a lot going on. We still have some earnings coming out. Retail's bouncing around, all that kind of stuff. But at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to watch for that daily sector rotation. Do we see anything like XLU today? Yep, XLU took them today. Right. Inside week to the upside. That tells us defensive posture. That's what they're doing. Right. So we're always when you have this inside week, we're going to watch for this continued sector rotation. We've known about energy all year. XLE went to the highs today, or the highs of the year today, but not the highs of ever. And that's what we're always looking for. Is if you go back to the highs of ever, right? Has XLE been higher in the past? Well, we're getting there. Right? But stuff like Oxy, we know is getting back into here, and it's been a lot higher with energy prices higher than they were when they were down here, a lot higher. So we'll see. We're going to stay with the energy. We're going to stay with the sector rotation while we have the inside week. And I can't stress that enough. I think I've said it enough, but I can't stress that enough. How do we get out of here? How do we get out of this range? And then coming into the new month, how do we make a higher low out of this month? Right now, we're a lot closer to taking out the lows. We know there's been a lot of trouble here so far. So we'll see. But these signals, what I'm showing you, is what tells us what's happening in the market. Right? I don't need a chart outside of gauging magnitude for how far something's going to go based on the broadening formation series. But I can tell you by scanning, what are they buying? What are they selling? EOG here, monthly, nice month you got there, buddy. And also inside week and up here, barely. 3 weeks inside of here. But this is what we're going to do every day. What's the rotation look like? All right. And what's coming up? A new month. Right? That's very important to know. So that's going to do it for today. I'm Rob Smith. Smith the Black Strat Attack Show.
You've been listening to the Strat Attack Show.
It's over.
That looks like I'm running out of time again.
You ever seen a grown man naked?
And now for something completely different.
Yeah. Did you get that memo?
Let's go to Billy Baroo. Here's where they're buying.
Oh, behave.
Here's where they're selling.
Oh, righty then.
I'd keep an eye on this. Is that a problem? It is.
You just don't turn it off.
I'm Rob Smith.
I hate Illinois Nazis.
I'm Smith in the Black with the Strat Attack.